Now, one of the big teachings of the Buddha is nirvana. And remember that nirvana, this takes the place of moksha. Now, the word nirvana literally means blowing out or extinguishing. And what's being blown out, what's being extinguished is desire and suffering. And remember that nirvana is experienced in this life. When? In this life. So if you work the wheel of the Eightfold Path, right, and then you reach nirvana, enlightenment. It's described as perfect bliss. And in fact, nirvana cannot be described, and it's not necessary to do so. It's not. We don't need to describe it. A lot of people go, "Why? Why can't we?" And the reason is, there's no need to. And what happens with language? This is a really kind of philosophical concept here. When we use language, we put a fix on something, right? When we describe it with words, we in essence nail it down. But nirvana cannot be fixed. It cannot be put into language because it is that which lies beyond language. That's how blissful and blessedness that is tied up inside of nirvana is that you cannot put it into language, and you don't need to put it into language. So, this is a really cool question. Hey, can anyone reach nirvana, or is it just Buddhists? And here's something fascinating. You want to, and you probably think you might know what the answer is. And anyone can reach nirvana. Wow. Anyone can reach nirvana. Reason being is that you don't have to study the teachings of the Buddha to reach nirvana. It helps. It's going to make it a lot easier to break that sense of attachment to impermanence and to end suffering, right? Anybody can reach nirvana. Now, here's something really wonderful. Anyone who reaches nirvana becomes a Buddha, right? So guess what's inside of each one of us? A Buddha. All that you have to do is reach nirvana, attain enlightenment, and you become a Buddha. So when we say the Buddha, right, that refers to Siddhartha Gautama, but throughout history there's been countless Buddhas. So a quick little side note is a lot of people say, "Hey, Mr. K, you talked about Siddhartha almost starving, but the pictures I look at, the statues of the Buddha, man, he's a big guy. He's got a big gut." And I say, well, that's not the Buddha, that's a Buddha, right? So throughout history, there's been many Buddhas. There's been many people who have attained enlightenment and have gone to teach others. And those are some of those different icons that we see. And anytime that we have a Buddha, right, and an enlightenment who comes back to earth to instruct others, that's called a Bodhisattva. Yeah, it's fascinating. So anybody can become a Buddha. So, who is a Buddhist? Buddhists have a creed. So this is the statement of belief in Buddhism. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Now, do Buddhists worship the Buddha? You probably know the answer to this. And the answer is nope, they do not. Do Buddhists pray? Do you remember? No. Do Buddhists sin? No. And a lot of people go, why do they not sin? Well, if you reflect back to the 5 precepts, right? Those came from the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, a man, right? The Buddha is not a deity, right? So there's no sin. So when you break one of the precepts, right, you have to take ownership of that, right, and realize that you're causing karma, bad karma, in your own life, and you have to realize that this is your responsibility. You don't owe responsibility to the Buddha. You owe responsibility to yourself. You have to own that. So, how do Buddhists live in this world? Dharma, duty, live a righteous life. How? By remembering the 3 factors of impermanence, right? What is life about? Suffering, all that stuff. Have to follow the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. So these are the guiding principles. And again, can anybody become a Buddha? And the answer is yes, you can. So what is our ultimate purpose? Our ultimate purpose is to seek enlightenment and reach nirvana. And, right, so this is the breaking free of samsara and suffering, not only for yourself. So Buddhism is not about getting caught up with selfishness, right? You're to live and help others and encourage others to find and follow, and this is something that's important, their own path to lead them to enlightenment and nirvana. In other words, what the Buddha taught was, this is what it took for me, right? Now, by following the 4 Noble Truths, 5 precepts, right? By learning the teachings of the Buddha and living your own life, you will find your own path. So, cool thing about the Buddha never said, do what I do. You have to live your own life. And as you live your own life, you have to turn away from permanence, right? Realize everything is impermanent. You have to turn away from suffering. You have to extinguish yourself and turn away from ego, right? You have to follow your own path to do so. And as you're doing this, you have to encourage others to realize that what's inside of each one of them is a Buddha. So, as we end our all too brief look into Buddhism, please remember to experience enlightenment for yourself and to become a Buddha, to embrace your own inner Buddha nature. So be well, do good work, and keep in touch.